Now, for a closer look at the impact of Comair's liquidation on domestic travel, we speak to tourism expert Unathi Henama, who joins us in studio. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for coming in person. I saw you shaking your head as the president was speaking. What is your reaction to what he's saying?
An enabling environment for aviation is what is necessary. Government doesn't necessarily need to provide financing. For as long as the environment is good, then airlines and any tourism company can be able to succeed for as long as the enabling environment is conducive.
Now, Comair goes under with no prospect of rescue, and perhaps it reminds us of other airlines that we've seen, like One Time, and perhaps now going back to how this continues to happen. We've seen it happen way too many times.
Yes, the demise of Comair means that 30% of domestic capacity is lost. The price is going to increase, and it's very rare that airlines go to business rescue and come out, because it is very difficult for investors to buy South African airlines, because the requirement is that if it's a domestic airline, it must be 75% owned by South Africans. It prevents companies such as Virgin Blue that will come in and say, we're going to buy maybe 100% of the airline. These regulations make it uncompetitive, make South Africa an uncompetitive investment destination for aviation. And then what is the cost? It is more expensive for businesses to fly now. Number two, the social cost. If you've got family in Cape Town, Durban, it's much more expensive. And we say we want to create a social compact, all of those things. But we've got regulations that have got no place today. Because the most important thing, this takes away jobs. This makes the cost of travel, the cost of living much more expensive. Yeah. And it is in no one's benefit except obviously Fly South Air, which is going to obviously increase prices because of a supply and demand dynamics.
I suppose it also places flight routes under strain for the other airlines. I mean, it's a big gap.
It is a big gap, and it is, besides making travel expensive in this country, it also makes tourism consumption much more difficult. You know, and it's even worse with the Russia war, Ukraine. The jet fuel is going up. So as prices going up, it means less domestic consumption at a time when we need tourism recovery to spread the tourism rent to all corners of the country.
So business rescue practitioners are going to court. I think they went to court yesterday. Let's talk a little bit about the process that will happen as they head to court.
I think as they head to court, they look for, I think, provisional liquidation so that they prevent the workers from losing their employment contract. But it's going to be, what I know is that liquidators will probably want to pay the jet fuel suppliers, which may be BP or Shell, and then maybe some of the creditors, such as the aircraft that they own. Yeah. And unfortunately, the workers might get the bad stick of this deal, but we will keep on watching what happens. But once again, how do we save the airline? It's impossible for as long as the regulations say 75% local ownership, and I don't think there's actually quite a big demand among South Africans to invest in an airline because of the deep pockets that you must have and the tough trading environment.
You say that the creditors, that you know, they will be paid out, but we also know that the customers are also forming part of the creditor group, where they will now need to also be paid out. We've seen companies like Discovery, F&B, putting their hands up to assist.
Yes, I think the last time, when One Time declined, they had when you pay with your credit card, there was a chargeback, something like that, where if you've paid and then they can't deliver services, then you're able to get back your money. For those who paid cash, they might be actually in a much more troublesome situation. But I think, again, this puts jeopardy the integrity of South Africa as a tourism destination, and also once again takes away the appetite of the traveling public to trust even private companies, because Comair was a great example of a private company providing aviation services and also diversifying, owning what Slow in the City, the Slow lounges. So it was a great example as we're experiencing all of these challenges, SAA being a perennial beggar of government, depressing state finances. So it's a very, very bad test case of how a great airline suffered. And also the pandemic was not very friendly, because this airline for the past 75 years has always been paying a dividend, has always been profitable. So the pandemic was quite very, very much terrible in it.
But, I mean, we see them go down, and then we see very shortly, I think there'll be an announcement of another low-cost airline arising. I mean, what then does it speak to when it comes to the pace at which these processes happen and the pockets that are ready to invest?
The issue is that there's always, business people will always be there looking at the opportunity.
Yes.
But the question is that South Africa is not a very good place to invest right now. The economy is going to be going down. Less people have got less money in their pockets, and the economic prospects are not rosy. I mean, they're quite dim. But it's always an opportunity because, I mean, if I can indicate to you that a lot of travel happens to the Western Cape, where we speak about immigration, where people would basically leave Gauteng, go set up shop, houses in the Western Cape, and obviously travel up for business and also work. And that routes will be underserviced because of the demise of this airline. So I believe it remains an opportunity.
What about the consumer? I mean, you've mentioned the strain that this will place on the price of flights. And we know that those change. I mean, they're not static because it depends on the time. There are many factors that determine how much you pay to fly. So with that in mind, what will customers need to look for to ensure that they're not getting robbed or not cashing in on a better deal?
No, there's no way to win this.
Yeah.
The prices are going to go up because of the issues of supply and demand. So that's the only way, unless a new airline comes in. But I think sometimes we need this pain, we need this pain to once again say, why are prices expensive? And then the question is, you've got the wrong regulations.
Yeah.
You've got regulations that prevent investment in the aviation sector. And when prices in aviation are cheap, it's good for everybody.
So you and I have had discussions previously about the tourism sector being a big, massive contributor to the economy. So with this big gap that Comair has left, what does it mean to the prospects of the tourism industry?
For example, I come from London. I get a flight for 8,000 rand return to South Africa to fly in and back. And then I must fly to another destination. I must fly to Kruger, and then I look at the prices. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it makes us unattractive. But more importantly, it leads to tourism being located in the major urban areas, Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg. And we want tourism to go to the most geographically spread areas of the country. So it is not good for the developmental benefit of tourism, because for tourism to be effective, it must meet the man on the street. It must have a positive impact economically, or they must know my child works at a hotel, works where.
Yeah.
Then at least you've got that tourism culture where people are much more friendlier to tourists because they know what value that they bring in.
Thank you so much. Thanks for weighing in on this discussion. Our tourism expert, Unathi Henama, speaking to the impact of Comair's liquidation on the domestic tourism sector. Of course, the major gap and the ripple effect.